If it's one thing that's very clear from this episode, is that each of the sisters are on their own really journey in life. They're not really connecting together at all. And I think mainly because each of them are on a different stage of the grieving process. And some are more willing than others to acknowledge the fact that they're grieving. Let's get into it. All right, we have a lot to get through, but before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button so that way you get updated when a new video is uploaded. All right, before I go any further, I just want to say, how are you guys liking the production of the show? For me, I'm not really feeling it. I'm not really feeling the song. I'm not really feeling the how they shoot, like the behind the scenes when they walk in initially, like in the black and white. I don't. It just isn't really connecting to me. I don't know. Maybe I miss the whole Braxton theme song from the other show. That it just seems too serious. Like I understand they're dealing with grief. It's a very heavy season, but something just seems off about it. Hmm. All right, so the first scene after the intro we get on with is with Miss Evelyn, Trina, and Towanda. They're at a little bar, whatever, having drinks and whatnot. And as they're talking, Kevin Jr. calls in. He's still in jail. So if we find out that apparently he was in jail because he failed to appear in court due to his ongoing divorce from his wife. So Kevin Jr. is going through a lot. I mean, he just lost his mom. It's the 2 year anniversary of his mom passing. His marriage is falling apart. Apparently, he and his father aren't speaking. So that young man is going through a lot. So I do not envy him at all. And they're all even saying that we're going to try and go out there to be there for him. And they get into the talking about the grief therapy session that they had with Spirit, which was in the previous episode. How, for Trina, she openly admitted, like, you know what, I need individualized grief therapy. And Tawana was like, oh, yeah, you definitely need individualized grief therapy. Now, I'm sure Towanda didn't have any bad intentions when she said that. She even said it herself. But and Trina was like, no, I don't take it as bad. I know I need it. But I'm not going to lie. It definitely wasn't said in a very loving and a very kind way. Just for me, it just came off like really aggressive. Like, yeah, obviously, yes, Trina is very much so the emotional one. She wears her heart on her sleeve. I'm a similar way as well too. In a similar situation, I would probably be the Trina. But honestly, though, all of them, Miss Evelyn included, all of them need solo grief therapy sessions because it's obvious to me that they're not handling their grief very well. And even though they're not overly emotional like Trina, they're not dealing with it. And yeah, you can nitpick and say, oh, Trina was being too much. But honestly, at least Trina had the courage to let her guard down and open up and express how she was feeling about the passing of Tracy and how it was affecting her. Not just emotionally, but also physically as well, to how she wasn't sleeping. And honestly, having the courage to say that I need help. At least she's waving the flag and I need help. And in that regard, she always had my respect. I always liked Trina. After Tracy, Trina was like one of my favorite people because I identify with her so much because I'm the same way. I'm very overly emotional, and it's okay to have those emotions. It's okay to say I need help. So that's why I was really off-putting with Tawana. I was like, oh yeah, you definitely need therapy. When it's like, y'all all need therapy, including Missy. And Miss E even called it out. Apart from Trina, Trina was the only one who was willing to open up and share, and the rest of y'all were not. And Trina went on to add, me at the notes. Trina said, there is ability and willingness are two different things. You have to choose. You can, if you choose not to participate, there's nothing that I can do about that. And it was very telling when she said that because Tawanda like took a sip of whatever she, or took a bite of what she was eating. So it was obvious to me that like Tawanda was at the moment was shut down. She was not interested in sharing how she was feeling. So I found Trina to be more genuine than Tawanda in that moment. I will praise Miss E in this regard because she did praise Trina on being willing to be open and vulnerable. But I will say that Miss Evelyn, she lacks a lot of awareness when it comes to her girls, when it comes to her grown women. And she can grown behind women, as she always says. But it's like you constantly go back and forth with, oh, when they were younger, they were best friends, and ever since they've been on the show, they've changed. And I'm like, Honestly, I think they've always been this way. There's no way that you just change automatically and the cameras click on. They've always been this way. Always had the personality they've had. Now it's out there for the public to consume, and she's getting all these positive and negative from people about her parenting style as well too. So I think she wants to try and distance herself from that because she wants to be perceived as this holy, good mother of the church. And if you were such that, then why are your girls not getting along? Well, I'm not going to blame Miss Evelyn because people are people who are grown, like she said. And I agree with that. People are grown, they have their own individualized personalities. But it's quite clear to everyone that you didn't always treat them as an individual. And now these women are basically middle age and they're still trying to figure out who they are. Which I mean that's a journey for everybody. So I can't you can't blame Miss Evelyn for that. But she does lack a lot of awareness in how her girls turned out. So then we go from that scene to Toni working in LA on her Love and Laughter show with Cedric the Entertainer. And actually, Toni even said that she's happy to be sharing the stage with Cedric because she has lupus. So sometimes she doesn't always feel well. So she has someone kind of to fall back on in case she's having those nights where she doesn't feel all that great. And it's quite obvious to me she's using work as a way to not deal with her grief. Let's be clear. I love Toni Braxton. I love her music, but it's obvious that she still suffers from big sister syndrome. So she's not allowed to let her guard down. At least she was programmed not to allow to let her guard down. So she's just trying to keep busy, trying to keep moving, but you can kind of tell. You can just kind of tell overall her energy level is just it's not where Toni used to be. So then the scene cuts to ATL, but from LA to ATL with Miss Evelyn and Tamar. And so they're talking, having like conversation. And I would definitely say the rapport that Miss Evelyn has with Tamar is very positive and very warm and loving versus when she was talking to Trina and Towanda. I definitely felt like she was kind of blaming Trina and Towanda for the negative energy that was going on in the therapy session and them not being open and honest. Whereas with Tamar, she was talking about, oh, how's the cooking show going? How's your book going? How's everything in your life going? And she was just more warming and more welcoming. And I always feel like Miss Ellen babied Tamar a lot, and that's why she turned out the way that she did. So that's just my opinion on that. For me, it's like that same energy you had with Tawanda. Why is that energy not with Tamar? Why aren't you asking Tamar? Why didn't she open up in a therapy session? Why aren't you the same way as she did with Trina and Tawanda? So, I mean, Tamar is in therapy though, so I will say, give her grace on that. Tamar is definitely in therapy. Actually, Tamar even said that I'm the type of person that I consistently need to stay in therapy, which, if you've seen previous episode, if you've seen her recent actions on social media, then yeah, girl, you need to be in therapy. Honestly, we all do. So I'm not even gonna quote him. Not even gonna bash him on that. Give her raise in that far. We all need therapy. And oh, also Tamar has a. She's working on a book. It's gonna be like a self-help book. Um. Okay. I mean, hmm. When I heard that, I was like, would I want to buy a book by Tamar? The title that she's going for is Under Construction, which we're all under construction. So, what do y'all think? Would you buy a book written by Tamar Braxton? Comment down below if you would buy it. So the sisters right now are bi-coastal. So the scene goes from this going back to LA where Tony's rehearsing for the show. And then after the rehearsal, she's talking to Towanda on the phone about Kevin Jr. She's breaking it down to Tawanda's telling Toni about, how he was in jail and all that. And so Towanda tells Toni that Trina's going to grief therapy sessions. And so she asked Toni, I said, are you in, grief therapy? He's like, oh, I know I need to get into probably and all that. And then she immediately shuts down. It's like, you know what, girl, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to have any conversation about it. And then very noticeably, after she says, I don't want to talk about it, it goes kind of into commercial. So you can definitely tell that Toni is very guarded. She's very closed off on it. And I think because when she's not feeling good emotionally, that affects her body as well too. And she's thinking like, I gotta get these shows, I gotta get this done. And I'm like, she says you're not taking care of yourself. Like, I want Toni Michelle Braxton to be around for as long as humanly possible, but you gotta deal with your grief, and I don't think any of them are. I will say though that this episode does a lot of cuts back and forth between LA, Atlanta, LA, and Atlanta. And I definitely feel like the vibe is very off. It goes from being kind of heavy and dark to being lighthearted. So I guess in that regard, it's kind of show both sides that, there's joy here as well too, because we cut from that scene with Towanda and Toni to now to Miss Evelyn and Tamar. And they're doing their cooking show and they're talking and they're laughing about food and what how it brings people together, and then Trina shows up and she does like the drinks and everything. And I mean, obviously, yes, there is that aspect of it, but it does seem kind of forced. Like the smiles and everything just seems like I'm just putting on a fake. Hi, I'm doing okay. I'm really good, but deep down you can tell. Like you can see it in their eyes. Their smiles don't match their eyes. So you can tell that they're suffering. But I will say though, watching this cooking show, you definitely can tell where Tamar gets her big personality from. She definitely gets it from Missy. Towanda actually said this once that Tamar and Miss Ellen are just like they're basically the same person. So you definitely saw it in this episode. And so we now cut from that scene to the one where Trina goes in for a solo therapy session with Spirit. And it's good that she's doing this as well too because she goes into the therapy session telling her how she has nightmares. She sees not only does she see Tracy in her dream, she sees Gabe. Gabe was her ex-husband that they had a really hard relationship. He cheated on her, all type of stuff, but they still had a good relationship even after the divorce, sort of. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, initially after the divorce, he was pretty awful to her, but eventually they forgave each other, moved on. And so one thing that I found interesting was that when she was talking to Spirit about her grief with Gabe, she wasn't really able to fully grieve him because she was with Vaughn at the time. And so Vaughn was like, wait, if you truly love me, then why are you grieving your ex right now? So there was a lot of tension between Mon and Trina over this, but then Trina had to just let him know, open up and be honest, let him know, like, while obviously I love you, I want to be with you, is that this is the person that who raised my kids. We have history together. It's natural that I would want to grieve him. And if the shoe was on the other foot and Vaughn was still grieving an ex, would Trina be so open and willing to forgive? I mean, I probably think that she would, but you would probably have some feelings about it as well too. But again, grief is grief. I mean, who cares if this person was in my past or whatnot? If I hear that someone has passed away, yeah, I'm gonna have some feelings about it. Especially if for as many decades that she was with Gabe for decades, then yeah, I'm gonna have feelings about it, and I should be able to express that. So for her to finally get that out of her system, I feel like that was kind of a release. And Trina also goes into the bombshell that really she hasn't felt the support from her sister since Tracy's passing because they haven't really talked or been in the same room in 2 years, and that's all of them across the board. And I was just like, wow. I mean, sometimes it happens after a major loss like that. Sometimes family members have to go away from each other and kind of deal with it in their own ways. But that's gotta be hard, especially when they used to be so close, talking on the phone from day till night, and then going to basically just strangers that I hardly know. That's gotta be hard too, because I mean, Trina does have Vaughn to fall back on, but I mean, they're not her sisters. They're not the people that she grew up with. He's not her sisters. Yeah, that therapy session definitely opened up some old wounds, which is good. I mean, if I know we don't want to rehash the past, and that's fine, but those old wounds are really infected. So sometimes you got to open that wound back up, get the infection out, and that way you can heal properly. And so the therapist was like, "How do you think you guys can do this?" And Trina was like, "Honestly, I don't know." And that response was very telling. Honestly, it's okay to say I don't know. Sometimes I don't know is part of what helps get you through. We're like, how do they work it? How do they work it out? Honestly, I'm confused as well too. I'm not a therapist. I'm not pretending to be. I'm a person on the internet with an opinion. But if you guys know, think of something, comment down below what you think. So then we go from that scene to Trina's house because Trina's packing up with Vaughn. She and Towanda and Sean, Tawanda's boyfriend, they're gonna go visit Kevin Jr. just to sit and talk with him face to face and just ask him what's going on. Which I think that's good auntie duties as well too. And I'm surprised that they're not inviting Tamar. I mean, Toni can't really fly that much because of her lupus and everything, so I understand that. But they didn't think to invite Tamar to come. Hmm, very telling. Just putting that out there. And also, this is one of the reasons why I like Vaughn. Of all the boyfriends that Trina has had, Vaughn is probably my favorite because he really just gets straight to the point. You're deflecting right now because Trina's trying to be funny, her normal self, and Vaughn was like, "You're deflecting right now." And she's like, "I am." She's like, "Yeah, you had a therapy session. You came home in the sunken place, really, and I just want to talk to you about it. I want to know what you're thinking, what's going on with you." And that's why I like Vaughn. Vaughn is very straight to the point, especially with this. Trina needs someone like that in her life that's just going to be honest with her and just talk and let her speak. So I like Vaughn. I like Vaughn. I know people are like, oh, he's so boring, but honestly, Trina's a little over the top, so it balances them out. And while she doesn't open up all the way, I will say Trina does let him know that, I did go to therapy session. It was a lot, and that she is worried about Toni, especially. And honestly, I'm glad that she's expressing that too, because I really didn't even think about the fact that Toni is by herself. She really doesn't have anyone with her apart from her boys, but those are her children, so she's not going to really open up and share all of that with them. And she's even said, with you, I have pillow talk. I can tell you things, and I can share and confide in you, but who does Toni have to confide in? And I think really, as a sister, she's really thinking about over the years, who did Toni have to look up to? I mean, they had Toni as their big sister, but who did big sister have to talk to? So she's thinking about that, but also she's thinking about her health scare as well too. And so Bonnie even said, so if Tony's anything like you, then she's probably not sharing with you guys unless she's absolutely terrified. And so it's like, yeah. So she's dealing with a lot of stuff with. So Vaughn, I think in that moment, while he wants to hear more, he appreciates the fact that she's willing to share that information. And so they get ready, they get packed up, ready to go. And so then it cuts from them to Towanda picking up her kids from school. Her kids are also worried about their cousin. They want to go see him as well too. But I will say at the end of this is happening at the end of the episode. Was actually starting to wrap up filming, but one of the producers was like, "We got Kevin Jr. on the phone. They've been trying to contact him for the longest, and finally they got him on the phone. Apparently, the people took away his phone, so that's why he hasn't been in contact. And they finally got contact with him through their father, Michael Braxton Sr. And so the scene ends kind of happy. They're on their way to go visit him. But I will say in the outro, with what's going to happen next week, we get kind of a glimpse into what Kevin Sr.'s thinking. And actually, Toni, this was actually funny. Toni was like, yeah, I think they should. I think they should fit Kevin Jr. and Kevin Sr. film together. I mean, she's saying that, but she's clearly like, no way. And Tawanda even said to us, shut that down immediately. So what happened between Kevin Jr. and Kevin Sr. that they're not even speaking anymore? I mean, they're both grieving the loss of the same person who kept them together. Like, that's confused. So that's going to be interesting to see. I want to kind of end this episode with just some brief information. I just feel like this would be really important, especially if you're going through the grieving process as well too. This really will help you. And I think will also help understand where the sisters are right now. This is an article I found on a website called "The Seven Stages of Grief." So the first one being shock or disbelief, denial, anger, bargaining, guilt, depression, and acceptance. I think we can all agree none of the sisters or Miss Evelyn are on the acceptance page, or Kevin Jr., or any of them really are there. They're still in the process. And sometimes you might take a step back, go from guilt to bargaining again, or from anger back to shock. It just really depends on just the individual person. So let's see. The first one, shock or disbelief. In this initial stage of Here we go. In this initial stage, you might feel stunned or unable to grasp the reality of a loss. It could take several months, weeks or a mind to process the loss. You'll know you're progressing to the stage when you feel a decrease in the intensity of the shock and the gradual acknowledgement of the loss and how best to handle it. Be patient with yourself, allowing yourself time to absorb the shock. You also want to seek support from family and friends and to help ground yourself. So then, second stage, which is denial, not just the river and even, y'all. In this stage, you may struggle with accepting the reality of a loss. Denial becomes a defense mechanism in which you try to protect yourselves from overwhelming emotions. The length of time in this stage will vary, oftentimes lasting weeks or longer, days or weeks longer. You'll know you're working through this stage when you find yourself more willing to acknowledge the loss, even though you may still have feelings of disbelief. How best to handle this stage. Allow yourself to experience or express your emotions without judgment. It's also helpful to discuss the loss with family and friends or support group if you want to help to the reality. I will definitely say though, I think Toni even said this in the last episode during the group therapy session that she's still in kind of this denial anger stage. And I think a lot of them are. They're just kind of pushing through. And how you can tell, I think going back and as you find yourself more willing to acknowledge the loss. And while I think they're willing to acknowledge the loss as well too, I don't think they're really no, I don't. No, I don't think they're willing to acknowledge. I think they're saying the right words just to say it. I don't think they really feel it though. So I think, like, especially Toni, is in this denial stage. Absolutely. Then the third one is anger. I think for most people will tell you that anger is the hardest stage to get off of. I mean, it's an easy emotion for all of us to go through. And anger is a natural reaction to a perceived unfairness of loss. This stage is characterized as by bursts of rage or irritability directed towards others, yourself, or perhaps even the person or thing that you've lost. This stage can be an intense one. By feelings of anger tend to diminish over time. As you move through this stage, you may experience moments of anger, but that won't be feeling as overwhelming. How you've handled this stage. Find healthy outlets for express your anger, journaling, exercise, or reaching out to a friend. Be sure to show yourself compassion and forgiveness for any moments of anger that you experience. I think that this stage is where Towanda is. I know Toni says she's in anger, but I think she's still in denial. I think Tawanda's at this stage. I think she's not really open to talking about it because she's very, very angry about it. And so she's kind of deflecting, talking about Toni, talking about Kevin Jr., talking about Tamar, and she's not really dealing with it herself. And the reason why I feel like it's Towanda who's in this stage as well too is that when she was going back and forth with Tamar about the things, she was getting a little upset there. So you kind of saw that kind of smooth control break a little bit. So I definitely feel like that's a Tawanda stage. Bargaining. So this is an interesting one. In this stage, you'll engage in thoughts or behaviors that attempt to change the outcome or regain control over what has happened. Examples of bargaining include, if only I had done this one thing differently, things would have turned out better. How to best acknowledge it going. Acknowledge your feelings of helplessness and do your best to surrender to what you cannot change. Ask with other grief stages, seeking out healthy ways to express or cope with your emotions. Also, I think I missed this one. The length of time you spend in this stage will vary based on your coping mechanisms and beliefs. I don't think any of them are in this stage, but I do feel like Miss E and Evelyn are on this. Miss Evelyn and same person. Miss Evelyn and Tamer are in this stage, which is the guilt stage. All right, so yeah, the guilt phase. In this stage, you'll experience feelings of self blame, responsibility for the loss. This is where you become indulgent with the thoughts of what if only. It can only deepen sad or painful times as you dwell on past actions, decisions that may have led to the loss. The stage often lasts for an extended period of time, especially if unresolved issues or regrets contribute to feelings of guilt. Now, I'm going to say that again for the GED section, especially if unresolved issues or regrets contribute to feelings of guilt. I say that for Miss Evelyn and for Tamar because I do feel like they feel guilty about how they've treated Tracy in the past, especially Tamar, because Tamar was super mean to her all throughout the seasons of Braxton Family Values, always nitpicking at her, always calling her, I know, low key, the fugly sister, the uncouth one, the uncivilized one, all that. But she was really the heart of the show. I think that's why everyone really liked her. I think there was one thing where like Tracy put out an album and a fan of her was, oh, you should get a Grammy nomination for this. And Tony was like, Tamar was like, ugh, it's more like an auto-tune. So I was like, oh, wow, that's how you talk to your sister? Alrighty, girlfriend. But how to best handle this stage? Give yourself compassion during this time. Acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes. Be gentle with yourself, doing your best to find forgiveness for yourself and others involved. So there's that. But this is the one I think that Trina is on, and that is the depression stage. Depression. This stage is essentially a period of mourning where you might feel deep sadness or despair as you come to terms with the impact of the loss. Depression isn't one size fits all experience. We'll all each interact in our own way. You may experience persistent feelings of sadness, loss of interest in activities you once enjoyed, changes in appetite or sleep patterns, and difficulty concentrating. Depression stage can be prolonged, lasting weeks, months, or even longer. How to best handle this? Ways to address depression, including seeking professional help, leaning on network, and engaging in self-care activities. Yes, the part where it said, let me repeat that again. Okay. You may experience persistent feelings of sadness, loss of appetite, or sleep patterns and difficulty concentrating. That is Trina in a nutshell. She is the closest there. She's at the depression stage. But then again, I think I read somewhere that even though you're at this stage, you might even fall backward and go into other stages as well. Like anger as well too, or so you can blend stages as well. And so I think what they all need to work toward is getting to the acceptance stage. And this is the final stage of grief. In this stage, you'll finally come to terms with the reality of a loss as you begin to move forward. You may feel a sense of resolution or peace. You'll begin to integrate the loss into your life instead of trying to avoid or deny the reality of the loss. And how best to handle this stage? Embrace the idea of integrating the loss into your life rather than specifically trying to move on or get over it. Let yourself grieve at your own pace and continue to seek support from loved ones. It's important to know that each time spent each stage of grief may vary significantly from person to person to the next. Factors that will contribute to variety in time spent each stage in grief, the nature of the loss, your coping mechanisms, your support network, and your personal beliefs. All right, final thoughts on this episode. So yeah, I mean it's great to see Trina going and getting that solo one-on-one therapy. Moving forward, I hope that all of them get that as well too, especially Towanda, Toni, and Tamar. Tamar said that she's in therapy as well too, so I want her to continue with that. I would like to see also Miss Evelyn going to a solo therapy session as well too. I'd like to see Mr. Braxton, the father as well too, and Kevin Jr. Kevin Jr. needs it more than all of them put together because he's going through so much. He's losing his mom, his dad sounds like he's speaking to, and also his wife's married. So he's going through much. So I would hope that he's getting the counseling that he needs as well too. And it's good to see that in this next episode, his two of his aunts, or at least, are going out to see him. But those are my final thoughts. So, what did you think of this episode? What do you want to see moving forward? And also, what other shows do you want me to react to? Comment down below to keep the conversation going. And as always, I wish you all love, happiness, and goodness. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button so that way you stay updated when the next video is out. Till next time, stay in peace, not pieces.